All right, this is a test. I'm testing my microphone levels. All right. Welcome, everyone. I'm Scott Schaefer at the B-Town Blog. Thank you all for being here and practicing community democracy in action right here. Give yourselves a big hand. So I'm going to just quickly turn it over. My only announcement is please silence your cell phones. You're allowed to tweet here, by the way. So there's no... Oh, we won't even go there. Okay. I'm going to turn it over to our moderator, Jack Main, and he'll introduce the panel. Thank you very much.
Well, I'm not going to introduce the panel. I'm going to let the panel introduce themselves. Anyway, I'm Jack Main. I've been covering the Burien City Council for the last couple of years. And so I get to see, and I do it by video, by computer, which gives me a chance to say, now, did he really say that? And back it up? Oh, he did say that. Or in 10 minutes, I see somebody said something and it comes back together with something somebody said earlier. It makes it a lot easier. I spent a lot of years as a newspaper editor and cover things, but we couldn't do it with this kind of precision. So nobody questions my quotes because they're right. Anyway. My co-moderator this evening is Susan West. Introduce yourself, tell them who you are.
How's that? Can you hear me? Okay. Hi, I'm Susan West. Let's see here, testing. Is that better? Okay. I'm currently mayor of Normandy Park, and I've been on the council almost 4 years. So I'm up in end of December. I was born in Burien, and I've lived in Normandy Park most of my life. So my life really has been here and Normandy Park, and I went to junior high and high school in Des Moines. So really, I feel like I'm a regional resident. So I really wanted to be here because Burien means a lot to me. This whole region does. So I really care about the elections. I care about who's running the city, and I care about the residents and how the community is health-wise. So I'm thrilled to be here. My background is I currently work for King County. I do strategic communications work. I've worked in public relations for a long time, and prior to that I was a newscaster, a journalist, just like Jack, for about 20 years. So I'm glad to be here and to ask a variety of questions to both the candidates, and I'm thrilled that they could both be here to meet all of you and have the opportunity for you to get to know them better. So
I think we'll start with Darla. Introduce yourself and tell us why you're doing this.
All right.
How you got here?
Hello? Okay. Try not to get a lot of feedback here. And it's really hard to gauge this, isn't it? Okay. Wow. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out where to go here. Better. Hello?
Maybe
Okay,
you
that
can
sounds better. I'll try to
use
hold
Jack's
this
mic.
position.
Jack's mic works. Yeah.
All right. Wow. Thank you. What a turnout tonight. I'm excited to be here, and I'm working really hard to earn your vote for Burien City Council. This is a critical election for Burien and Burien's future. My name is Darla Green. I am a mother, I am a resident, and I'm a successful Burien business owner. We needed someone to stand up for Burien. I heeded that call with great support from you. If we are to guarantee the people who call Burien home a viable, fiscally responsible future, we must have a strong foundation of public safety and thriving business districts. We must preserve Burien's small town charm. It is something that makes our community special. We must work together as a council and as a community to protect Burien's greatest assets. We must address our crime, chronic vagrants, and underperforming business districts by vigorously supporting our laws and ordinances and removing restrictions on business development. Burien can and should be a safe city for all. The single most important responsibility a council member is to listen to our residents and our business owners. A council member should participate at council meetings in the role of promoting the greater good of the city and our citizens. A council member should not hinder the process for for the sake of social activism and single-minded platforms. Burien does not need another social activist on its board. Burien needs mature, experienced council members who take seriously the issues on the table. I am heavily vested here, just as you are. I have no other political aspirations. I have no backs to scratch. I want to make a difference for my city, our neighborhoods, by supporting a strong foundation of public safety, business development, and a Burien first attitude. Thank you guys so much for coming here tonight.
See if I can do, I think we're good, okay. Hi everyone, thanks for coming out. My name's Austin Bell, running for Burien City Council. I'm glad to see so many people here, and thank you to the B-Town blog for hosting. I mean, you guys are what make Burien great. You know, you're being involved in the community. And ours is a really great community. We're a compassionate, vibrant community. That's why my family's been proud to call it home for 4 generations now, and I hope to raise another generation here myself someday. But there's some things that, are troubling. We have streets with empty storefronts. We have some neighborhoods that still don't have sufficient pedestrian improvements. I think there's a lot we can do to fix that. I worked my way through college as a licensed real estate broker, got my bachelor's from the University of Washington. Now back there studying community development and urban planning. With good policy, there's a lot we can do. We can fill in some of these empty storefronts by getting rid of excessive parking mitigation fees. We can use the Transportation Benefit District to provide pedestrian improvements in all of our neighborhoods. If we simply end the divisive rhetoric that's kind of plagued our council and our politics for so long, start moving together again, there's a lot we can do. We can be the model that all the other cities in the region will want to emulate. Thank you.
So I will ask the first question of both of the candidates. When I first went on the council, I ran for a cause. There was something that meant a lot to me. It was about increasing communication with the city of Derby Park and its residents. So I had one single big cause. And when I got on the council, it was quite an eye-opener for me, just as it is with other new council members, to find out that there are so many other issues, huge issues in your community that you need to understand. So I guess my question for both of you is how often have you been going to the current council meetings? And can you tell me a little bit more about other important issues going on in Burien other than both of your platforms that you just talked about? Like, for example, and I'll bring it back to Normandy Park again because this coincides with Burien, the budgets are huge. It's a huge issue to talk about. Community development is important. Shoreline plans are important. So tell me, each of you, just another issue that is important to Burien that the council is currently working on right now that you feel that you want the community to know more about, that's important. Who would like to go first?
I think that's a great question, actually. I think that so often people run and they kind of have one platform, and that kind of becomes the basis of everything. And that's why I found that going door to door and introducing myself to everyone in the community, I've learned a major amount about what it really is important. Things that you would never guess. Tree roots tearing up pipes that are from the city property, overflowing ditches. These are things that don't usually excite people to run for office, but they're extremely important to the homeowners and the residents of our city. Sorry, and so that's why I feel it's so important to actually get out there and talk to the members of the community, hear from them, hear what's important to them. Otherwise, if we're only listening to the loudest voices, I think we'll get distracted by issues that aren't what's really pressing to all of us.
I've been in business for over 10 years, successfully, might I add, through a crazy recession, through community engagement. I'm actively involved in going to our meetings, definitely for the last couple years, and keeping my ear to the ground while running a business. Budgets are incredibly important, and balancing a budget is incredibly important. You have to realize that revenue streams are important for the city the size of Burien. You're right, talking about storm drain water is not attractive, but it is something that all cities need to consider. Sidewalks, safe pathways for our children that go to school, absolutely. Long-term vision in the terms of transit, very important. Things that are going to take billions of dollars and 20 years of planning. I have the experience to make sure that our vote will put the citizens of Burien first.
I'd like to know what the demonstrations in the city that we had last year, and in last winter particularly, and they were predicted to go through the summer, but they didn't happen, apparently. What that meant to you running, and what that means to you in the future in handling such circumstances. So I'll start with you, Darla.
Love it. Sooner rather than later. So the protest on the behalf. No. Okay. Here we go again. Microphone wars. So the protest. It was absolutely the catalyst that put me in this race after asking many business leaders in this community to run. They weren't able to for a variety of different reasons. After watching my community go through the Great Recession and see our beautiful town center and our library built, and we were actually making great headway. And then, unfortunately, we have a sitting council member who chose to make Burien her stepping stone to a different path for her. And then that involved me, because I stood up for my community. It is not right for a council member to use the backs of its citizens for a single platform. I chose to run because it was the right thing to do. And I have the experience and knowledge to help our city council through some very tough decision-making processes.
Yeah, I just want to say, me and Darla, we have a disagree on a lot of things, but when people protested her business because she chose to speak her opinion and voice her right, that was absolutely wrong. And I think I see some of the people in here tonight, and I denounce that and I disagree with it. We should respect each other's voices and allow each other to speak. That being said, I know the ordinance that was passed, I feel like it became a national embarrassment. I think even the Daily Show made reference to it. I don't want to see more of that. I don't want to see divisive politics in my town. I don't want to see embarrassing ordinances. I want us to move forward with compassion and real solutions that actually bring about effective change.
Yes, we do disagree with this. I 100% our trespass ordinance. Burien needs something that's going to keep our citizens and our business owners safe, and our sidewalks safe for our children to walk to and from the library to and from. You called this ordinance an anti-homeless ordinance, and that is incorrect. There is a difference between a criminal and someone that doesn't have a pillow to call home at night. It is about behavior. It doesn't matter where you live. I'll say this again. It is about behavior. If you're shooting up in our public library, that is a crime. Now, Burien has done a great service to these people that are breaking our laws by not arresting them. We are prosecuting them civilly only after up to 11 different warnings to keep them out of jail, because incarcerating them is not going to help the bigger picture, but it might help them find some resources. We have to trust our first responders. They know these people. I don't know these people. I'm running a business, but our cops do. And maybe that one time that our officer is addressing the same person for the same behavior, maybe on the third time, possibly the fourth, that person might choose to get some help.
Hello? Okay, there we are. So as a current council member in another city, the conversation going on right now makes me think of conversations I've heard with my council and other councils. So this leads me to a question for both of you. When you're on the council, there has to be a majority vote to pass something. It can't be one person feeling a certain way. the loudest person, the most opinionated person, that one person can't make a decision. It has to be a majority, and the hope, of course, is that eventually everyone will come together, there'll be a compromise, and everyone will feel good about the decision, and the community will feel good too. So I'd like to know from both of you how you're going to work with the rest of the council to be able to push through what you really believe in terms of representing your community. So it's not what you personally believe in, it's what you are representing for the rest of the community. So how are you going to do that? Because again, it can't be one council member making all the decisions, there's got to be a majority vote. So how are you going to work with the others?
First and foremost, working with adults requires adult behavior. Our council is lacking that. We are mired because we have people that want to bicker versus moving forward. I can respect someone else's opinion. That's not a problem. But I will fight for my neighborhoods and my residents, and I will fight for public safety because I believe it is crucial to move Burien forward. We must change the perception of Burien. We must move forward. Public safety has to be a priority, and followed by addressing our business development. I will fight hard for that, but I will not mire a city council if they don't agree with me.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think our council has been kind of divided, and it's slowed down progress. I mean, we've seen multiple sessions where Twitter was the main topic of debate, and rather than other stuff. Working at real estate for so long, you have parties that come together and over a high stakes, transaction that involves a lot of people's funds. Sometimes you get people angry, and sometimes you think, boy, I don't know if they're right, but you got to work together. You always got to be able to compromise. I found that at the doors too. I often talk to people who we might come from a different, stance on an issue, yet we're always able to empathize with each other, find the things we agree on. And I think with Burien, there's a lot of things that are that way. We all agree that we want to fill in these shops. We all agree we want to make the streets a little safer. Let's focus on the things we agree on and stop fighting over the things we disagree on. I think I've worked well with every member of the council. I've never said anything poorly against any one of them, and I think I'll have a good relation with all of them.
Austin, I'd like to start with you and ask you, you're a newcomer to politics. I think these microphones get in each other's way. You're new to politics. While your family is from here, you have not really lived here. You've been off at the university or other places. How are you going to be able to create a kind of a group of people? You will be the youngest council member by 10 or so years. You will be a newcomer. I don't know whether you realize how much a councilman has to read every week, but it makes your courses probably look small. How are you going to be able to do this and still and be able to come together and get a group together to work on one subject rather than the disparate number of things that are going on now in the council session?
Yeah, a fair question. I am young. There's no denying that. But Burien has a history of electing young leaders. Our representative Joe Fitzgibbon was not much older than me when he first got elected. My grandfather actually ran for city council when he was in his 20s. Got elected, of course, that was before the city was incorporated. Can tell that story another time. But nice thing, a great thing about Burien is we have great community institutions coming together already. We need to build on those. We need to support organizations like our Neighborhood Watch and other organizations, Transform Burien, Sustainable Burien, Food Ship Project. Great organizations already coming together, and I hope to work with all of them if elected.
There we go again. Is that better? Okay. Sorry, can you hear that, or is it just me?
You want to use Austin's mic?
Check. Let's try this mic.
Okay.
Well, every time I turn this one off.
Hello? Oh, this is so much better. The question was based on age, Jack?
No, not really.
Because I have a few years on Austin.
No, it is the time that you're going to spend and have to do these kind of things, the reading, the learning, and it's you said earlier that you want to bring people together to work on things, but that takes a lot of time.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
how are you going to be able to do that and run your business, which takes a lot of time?
Yes, yes, that does too. Again, I've been in business for 10 years. I grew this business from scratch, and I'm really proud to say that my long-term employees, I've been in business over 10 and a half years, and she's been with me 10. I have another employee who's another right-hand gal. I am very, very lucky. I'm actively engaged in my community. I am a Block Watch captain. I am engaged in the community in different events. I now have the time, after growing my business for this long, that I can devote the time that my city needs. I would not have chose to run if I did not have the time and energy to give back to my community. And it is the right time for me.
And talking about time commitment, obviously your own community's individual issues are very important. So what's happening in Burien is incredibly important to you, but there's also the region, and there's your neighboring cities. So, and I've been a huge advocate in Normandy Park of trying to build a relationship with Burien, build a relationship with Des Moines and other surrounding communities, because really we've got to look at a bigger picture. We've got to look at our individual issues, but also the bigger picture of how do we all survive together in this part of King County. And obviously all of our little cities along the way, we're all very, very different. We have all of our different strengths and culture. But I strongly am an advocate of working with each other. So I'm curious about your thoughts on building a partnership and a relationship, whatever it may be, economically, figuring out recreation, I don't know, whatever it could be, building a stronger relationship with Normandy Park, Des Moines, SeaTac, maybe even Tukwila, so we can really become a regional force. Look at the east side, Bellevue and Kirkland and Redmond and Woodinville. They're incredibly strong. Seattle's strong in itself. Pierce County is strong. But what can we be? So I'd love to know your ideas and thoughts on that.
I could not agree more. I started reaching out to SeaTac council members earlier this year as SeaTac is facing some of the same critical issues we are. There's no sense in addressing our priorities, which happens to be crime, without partnering with our sister cities. We need to come together as a coalition of like-minded cities to work together to solve these problems, because there's no sense in us addressing something if SeaTac isn't, or Des Moines, or Normandy Park. I also think a really great example of working together is that Normandy Park and Burien are sharing a fire station very soon, which is incredibly exciting for us. That is just one example, but it needs to be done. We have to start with city council members that are willing to work together.
Yeah, that's a great question. It's fantastic that we have organizations like the Highline Cities Association, the Sound Cities Association, so we have these forums in which we can work together, and I hope I can get on one of those if on the council. And I think there's lots of examples in which we've already been doing this. Normandy Park and Burien worked closely on the First Ave project not too long ago. We should push forward with that, especially issues such as, like Darla mentioned, crime and also homelessness. I mean, these are issues that can't be solved entirely by us, and certainly not on the shoulder of the Burien taxpayers. They have to be regional solutions, which means we have to work with not only the other surrounding municipalities, but also with our partners in King County.
See if I can make this work. Let me ask both of you, what would you propose on your first week or so or month on the council to handle the problem that these people showing the signs back here about? Homelessness is a problem. Not all people, as was said a moment ago, are really homeless, but there are a lot of real homeless people in our community. Part of the problem is there's a big battle in Ballard right now. They don't want it up there, so guess where those people are going to come? SeaTac and to Burien. What would you do? We'll start with you. What would you do right away?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, as long as we live in the shadow of Seattle and their failed policies, this is going to be an issue that's going to be on our table. And I think going back to the last question, we're not going to be able to completely solve this by ourselves. There is no magic bullets on it. We have to work with our regional partners. One of the first things I'd like to do is work with the other neighboring cities and perhaps a mobile hygiene facility. That way it's not stationed here, we're not attracting anyone to us, but yet we're still providing the services to help people and give them a hand up and become prosperous members of society again.
This is a very controversial issue. Burien currently has an annual budget of $275,000 that goes towards human services. I would not support any type of tent city, any kind of car lot, encampment lot, or a hygiene mobile unit. With a constituent base of just over 50,000 people and our annual budget of $275,000, you are going to be asking your taxpayers to increase the burden on the shoulders of our residents and our business owners, and that is incredibly unfair. Now, how to address it? I think the best thing we can all do to address this is make sure that it's addressed federally. We have a huge problem, and it cannot be saddled. We cannot be burdened with this the size of Burien. It's something we cannot handle. And I do agree that it has to be addressed regionally. But I don't believe in enabling people's behavior. There are criminals out there and criminal behavior.
They're bankers.
And protesters. Hi.
Yeah, they're bankers. That's a
Our residents are currently paying for multiple services. For example, $13,500 is going to the Highline Area Food Bank. That service is not just Burien, it's unincorporated King County. It's actually any person that shows up. We have $8,500 to the crisis clinic. That's the 211 number. So please don't tell me that Burien isn't doing enough. We are doing what we can.
Arrest the bankers.
This is a debate, not a protest.
So,
Yeah.
turning also to economic development, I've seen empty storefronts in all of our communities along First Avenue. And I know the cities are trying hard to fill the storefronts and make sure that we're economically strong. And I know that both of you kind of touched on this in your opening remarks about the economy and trying to build it up. But specifically, what is it you're going to say to the other council members? And what are your strategies for trying to bring in more stores to your city? And the reason I care about that is it affects Normandy Park and it affects Des Moines, and what we do affects you. And so what is it specifically that you're going to propose to the council to, literally try to make a difference in boosting the economy? One of the things we did in Normandy Park is we started an economic development committee, which now has about 84 members of business owners, corporate property owners, residents. We also partner with many of the members of Discover Burien and members of business owners of Des Moines, because again, it goes back to regional. And one of the things we do is we put on events which raises money for our local food banks. So again, we're trying to also not only help the businesses but our communities. So what is it that you're going to send out? What's your message going to be to the rest of the council about how you're going to boost the economy?
I guess ladies first, all the time. Thank you. First and foremost, I hate to keep reiterating this, but it is the truth. We've got to reduce our crime. No investors want to invest in Burien if they're putting millions, billions of dollars into the core of downtown Burien to only have their new residents of Merrill Gardens to be accosted or having to wade through pot smoking, which might be legal, but is still not legal to smoke in public. We need to address our slumlords. We have plenty of them. These are people that own buildings in Burien and do nothing with them. They won't fix the roofs, so their tenants move out, or tenants that move in will pay absolutely bottom dollar for the rent just to stay there, and adding not a lot. I took account today on the amount of cash-based businesses in Burien, which was about 110 out of 1,600 businesses. And most of those businesses are paying very, very low rents. And I looked at some of the buildings when I had time to tour Burien, and I've lived here, so I know where they're at. And those buildings are falling down. And we have to hold those landlords absolutely responsible for their buildings, because when their buildings are maintained, it's going to bring more businesses into Burien and increase our aesthetic in our business district. And that is going to bring bigger businesses here, because they're going to want to invest in Burien. We need a combination of small business, which I am a small business, but we also need to attract our bigger businesses, and that increases our revenue stream. You increase your revenue stream, guess what? We have more money for the services that Burien needs. It is time to attract the millions of people through SeaTac Airport every year. Burien needs to see some of that revenue, and it's time to work with the Port of Seattle.
I think you asked, what would I say to the council? I say, well, for one, stop debating about Twitter and get back to doing the work for business owners. There's a few things we can do on day one. One, the excessively high parking mitigation fees need to be addressed. Difficulty in getting change of use permits needs to be addressed. But there, more than that, there's also kind of the general philosophy of it. 152nd, a lot of it is doing pretty well. We have a lot of great small businesses on 152nd that wouldn't be able to survive in a lot of other communities. That was good planning on the part of a past council. People like to stroll down 152nd. They go to one shop and they keep going down to others. We need to move forward on that. We need to make sure that we have a very walkable business district. That way businesses will start to help out each other. Right now we have empty storefronts down there, and hopefully Merrill Gardens will help cure some of this. But I'm tired of seeing people get in their car and drive past our business district on their way to the South Center. I want Tuckwell to do well, of course. We will all want to do well. But I think walkability, getting rid of excessive parking mitigation fees, and making it easier, the permit process easier, are three things we can do right away.
As a business owner in the cute part of town, which is Old Town, I've been there for over 10 years, and in those 10 years, I've watched 25 businesses close their doors. That's in Old Town. That's a 2-block radius. Thank God we have anchors such as Tin Room Mark and 909. They bring a lot. I am an anchor as well, and I add a lot to this neighborhood. But in 25 businesses in 10 years closing their doors in the cute part of town is not doing well. We need to address that, and in fact, I would love to see all of 152nd from 1st to 10th become a main street. And again, we're only going to be able to do that if we hold those landlords responsible for their buildings. And if they have tenants that are bringing the cops in because they have prostitution behind in the alleyway, or there is loitering on the sidewalks, we need to address that behavior, and if they don't, we will. We need to do more for our business owners, small and large.
Maybe you could ship everybody off.
I did not come here to listen to you. Shut up. You shut up.
You could run for council, you know.
Yeah, I'm not interested in a corrupt city council.
It's not your forum.
I would like to address this directly to you. You say that you've been a real estate professional, yet you don't have a real estate license out in the state. And at least research with the state of Washington indicates that you had one and it expired a couple of years ago. And so give us a little update of what you do. Are you a full-time student or what?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was a real estate broker for numerous years. When I was 20 years old, and then now I'm currently a full-time student, master's program in community development and urban planning. I think that my experience as a real estate broker is very beneficial, because an understanding of real estate law, property, respect for property rights, I think is important for our council, and also an understanding of what it gives value to property, what a good neighborhood looks like, that is something I'll bring to the table.
Question for Darla specifically. I was looking at your website and your information that you express on it. And the main message on your website is experience, leadership, and knowledge. Can you explain the word experience and how that pertains to running for council? What is the experience that you're bringing to the council?
Well, I do have a few years on Austin, and I spent the bulk of the 90s actually working in high business-to-business sales. I was in pharmaceutical sales. I managed a region, Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and Montana. I ran $1 million counter for Nordstrom's in the early 90s and became a business owner. Because I was in sales, I needed a slightly different offset for my tax reasons, and it became my career through some life circumstances. I am very lucky. I have quite a bit of experience working with people, managing people, working with budgets from very low to extraordinary high. And running a business requires you to be very fiscally conservative. Any successful business owner is fiscally conservative. And with our tax-paying residents, we owe it to you to be fiscally conservative with your money. We have to have money in the coffers, and I'm used to that.
One of the big issues that started in SeaTac and it's now branched out around the country and down to Seattle and so on is the $15 an hour wage. Would you recommend, both of you, would you recommend putting such an ordinance before the people or directly passing it in Burien in the near future?
No, I'm not convinced that $15 minimum wage would be good for the city of Burien. We're a very small jurisdiction. The benefits I don't think could be seen. People say, oh, well, SeaTac did it, and nothing, the sky isn't falling there, but SeaTac did it specifically for airport workers and I think hotel workers and things directly associated with the airport. These are jobs that can't be outsourced, can't be pushed out. Too many of our small businesses, I'm sure many of them would want to pay their employees $15 an hour. However, they're simply not able to with the budgets they have. So no, I'm not convinced that $15 minimum wage would be good for the city of Burien.
Austin, I agree. It would be a utter failure to have a $15 minimum wage in Burien. That actually equals about $18.73 to the business owner, and that doesn't include actually labor and industry taxes. Most of our businesses are all small businesses. It's not fiscally responsible.
So let's talk about transportation and commuting and trying to get around town and into other cities. And so question specifically for you, Austin, because I was looking at your site too, and I perused both of your websites and information that you've submitted through questionnaires, and one of your quotes was, with growing congestion in our region, it is more important than ever to invest in affordable transportation options that work for everyone. Can you explain exactly what are those affordable transportation options, and what is it that you would pitch to the council? Because again, I want to remind everyone that you've got to talk to the council as a whole and the city manager, and you've got to get everyone on board, or at least the majority, to follow through with whatever it is that you're trying to push through for your community. So what is it that you'd be proposing to the council and the city manager?
Yeah, so I mean, our region is one of the fastest growing in the country, and because of constraints, traffic is going to get worse, and we have to prepare for that now so we don't get stuck in gridlock forever. They recently expanded 509, and that may very well bring even more cars here. So our growth and our transportation has to be very well planned. That being said, most of us will always continue to be using our vehicles, but I do think that it's important to have a multimodal system, because for people who want to choose to use transit, especially to get into the city, that needs to be available, otherwise we're going to be stuck behind them if we're driving anyway. So I propose to the council that we use funds from the Transportation Benefit District to possibly even buy back some nighttime service and make it easier to commute.
Transportation is incredibly important and will continue to be very important. Our current budget per year is just over $300,000, so Burien is stepping up to the challenge. We have a 20-year plan, and part of that was actually putting in the bus, my brain is freezing. Thank you. The park and ride. Part of that was actually putting in the park and ride, and I'm really thrilled that it's there. We do have some challenges with some people coming into our city and whatnot, but that's to be expected. The 20-year plan is coming, and I'm excited for that. We have to have density to have, for example, sound transit or a light rail system. I'm thrilled. That is definitely in our future, and in a long distance future, about $15 billion in 20 years. But we have to have long-term vision to get there.
I have been watching and following quite some time something called the parking ordinance. You brought it up briefly. I don't know that you have, but there are, the city of Burien requires a certain amount of payments if you want to have a certain size store for parking. It's always a problem with people who move into the community or you're already in the community and have faced some increased costs like that. But if you take that cost away, that money away, how do we develop the parking needed in this community? And, you know, 152nd is not the easiest place to find parking. So what would you do to replace that impediment, as you call it?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess my philosophy has always been that what Burien needs is less empty storefronts, not more empty parking lots. It's true that down 152nd during some times of day it can be hard to find parking. There's a lot of off-street parking though. We just built a large parking garage, which is a few feet off from our business district, but we still have a municipal lot and what have you. So at this time, I don't think that the cost to the business owner justifies, or the need. I don't think the need is justified for the cost.
As a business owner in Burien, parking is an issue, but primarily in Old Town. We do have a crunch there from about 6th to 10th Avenue. We do have municipal parking lots, and we need to make sure that our business owners are aware so that they can tell their customers we do have parking. Having said that, I do believe that the parking fees are an absolute hindrance to doing business, and I'm specifically talking for small businesses. The actual store footprint for the individual stores along 152nd are rather small. So we need to make it easier to fill our storefronts and not put this incredible huge cost on asking our future business owners to pay for it.
Now a question about communicating with all of you and the rest of Burien. Normandy Park's got a little easier because we only have about 6,500 people. Your city is much larger. So it's easier for me to literally go door to door, although Austin, you mentioned that you went door to door talking to residents in Burien. So this is kind of a two-part question. As a council member, you will, at all hours in any day, you'll receive emails from citizens, you'll receive phone calls, you'll receive text messages, even Halloween, parents coming up with their kids trick-or-treating. Once the kids walk away with the candy, the parents stay. And I often am in some costume, like a witch or a cat or something, and I'm getting some really interesting questions on my front porch from citizens. That's part of the job. When you're a council member, you are 24 hours a council member. And many of the comments you get from the public are very intense and they're very emotional because there's something that's really on their mind that they're very upset about and they're passionate about, and they want to know what your answer is right away. So it's kind of a two-part question. How are you gonna handle that? And also, how are you when you're not getting those emails, phone calls, visits at your front porch, back porch, and text messages? How are you going to reach out to the public to make sure you know how all these people feel and the rest of Burien feels? Are you going to have maybe coffee meet and greets? There's an idea. What is it that you're going to do to make sure that you are literally in touch with these people? Because it's easy to get caught up in all of the research, like Jack was mentioning. There's so much information you're going to have to be reading continually as a council member. All the different issues that are going on, all your regional meetings, all of your city council meetings. How are you going to make sure you know what these people want and what they need? So, Austin, I'll start with you.
Yeah, that's a really great question, especially because I feel like oftentimes our elected leaders get detached from the communities that elected them. They start to only listen to the loudest voices, perhaps the people who show up with signs and protest. That's why I think knocking on doors, like you mentioned, it's been the best thing so far, because you're actually hearing door to door what people have to say. Real people, not people with real problems and who don't have the time necessarily to always come to the council meetings and make their opinion heard, or who aren't on the blogs posting or sending in emails. So I think that's the important thing that every elected official should do, and we should do it not just when we're running too. We should do it in off years just to keep in touch. And we always have to be accessible. I will always make myself accessible to the voters so I can be accountable to them.
Knocking on doors has actually been one of the best experiences of my life. And I am getting well, what are you going to do about this? And there's a lot of passion behind it. And what I say to anybody is that I may not have all the answers, but I will do the best I can. Owning a store in Burien, many of you, if you don't know what I own a day spa. I kind of cater to females. And I've had more men in my shop in the last 8 months than I have in 10 years. I absolutely have an open door policy, and I will be very accessible. I have a teenage son. I am on call 24/7.
And you would need to be, which is not a bad thing. I mean, I'm very glad that the community members in my community know they can reach out and talk to me and the other council members as often as they do. But just a word of warning or word of wisdom, whatever you want to call it, is make sure you contact them as soon as possible when you're contacted by the public. And it can be very challenging to keep up with all those emails and those phone calls and all those visits. But it's so important to remember that when someone contacts you, it is so important to them. Whatever that issue is, it may not be the highest issue at that moment, according to the council or according to you, but it's important to them. So, and that's the kind of person you want on your council, someone who's going to listen to you. So make sure you think about that, of how you would handle that situation.
I don't know if any of you have been to West Seattle recently. I happen to live there, in the Junction. There are 500, at least, probably more, new vacant apartments, condominiums. And I was talking to one of the developers the other day and asked him, well, how many more can we have here? And he said, we're probably pretty maxed out, like we're almost as bad as Ballard now. But guess where they're going to go next? I have talked to 3 people who said they are scouting property in the Burien area because they're relatively inexpensive, relatively in Seattle terms. It is not that much farther away. If Sound Transit ever does what they say they're going to do, we might have some connections to someplace else outside of the world. So what would you people do to facilitate and control the potential of massive growth quickly? In West Seattle, all of these buildings were built within the last year. I've lost my views in a couple of cases because of, well, okay, but there's going to be people going to want to have places to live. Seattle is growing faster than almost everywhere. So what would you do? I'll start with you, Austin.
Yeah, no, it's in West Seattle, and it's starting to get clogged up. Like we said before, we're one of the fastest growing metropolitan areas in the entire country. We have to prepare for it. We have to get ahead of this. The last thing we want is to see the character of our neighborhoods, our residential single-family zones, to be lost. That means that we're one of the designated urban villages under the Growth Management Act. The plan here is to build it up in our core. That's where the new units should go. I see there's some blocks around Burien where we have apartment complexes completely surrounded by single-family neighborhoods. That's not good for the character of the neighborhood. It's also not good for the people in the complexes, because now you can't provide the same level of services because those neighborhoods aren't designed for that. What we need is good planning ahead of time so that we get ahead of this. And I think that we've been making good progress. It's important to keep up with that, especially with how quickly the growth is coming.
Just before you answer, let me ask you folks to get your questions ready, because in about 10 or 15 minutes, we're going to let you ask some of the questions. So be ready. Darla?
Be ready. I do think it's very important to look long-term in our future, but also it's really important to maintain the character of Burien. It's important that we control the progress and not let progress control us. We've started that. We're having a wonderful complex. Merrill Gardens is coming in, very reputable. I believe they're going to have 148 units. We have an apartment complex going in adjacent to that at 248. We have started the process, but we are going to control it, and that is going to help Burien retain its character and charm.
So kind of a follow-up to that. A big conversation in Normandy Park recently with the council and EDC, as we call it, the Economic Development Committee, is the incredible growth of Franciscan healthcare on one side of Normandy Park, and the other side in Des Moines is the incredible development they're having, including the FAA Center. To us, the little city in the middle, we see that as a huge sign of big changes, and this coincides with what we're just talking about. So major healthcare on one side, major aviation growth on the other. I guess my question is do you see a direction that you want Burien and even Normandy Park and Des Moines to go in, to try to capture even more growth? I know you said that you want to keep the charm, which we do. We want to embrace change, embrace growth, but keep what we love about our community. But do you see any kind of theme? Do you see any kind of something that we can all capture as our three cities, or even embracing Tukwila, like I said, in SeaTac? One of the ideas that we've tossed around is, and I don't know, maybe you guys will like this, like cities by the sea. I don't know, some sort of theme to make us powerful where we are, and that captures the major growth that I think is going to be coming in here from major companies. So I'm not talking just the housing, but also big companies potentially coming in here, or how we attract them without ruining the charm that we love about the communities.
Does Burien have to stop the declare work ordinance?
That's another thing to talk about.
I would love to see a satellite campus, WSU, even Highline Community College. I'm definitely not a Husky fan. Sorry. Go Cougs. Okay. I would love to see a hotel here, and I'm talking a charming boutique hotel that might have a performing arts center under it that our city can use for performances. We need a draw, and we have the people to do it. We just hired an economic specialist. I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled for Burien. Again, it's about controlling progress and not letting it control us. I think what would be so damaging to Burien and Normandy Park, Des Moines, is to become Seattle light. I don't want the taxes. I don't want the crime. And frankly, I moved out of Seattle in 2001 to come here. And where Seattle is now and where we're at now, we have something great, and I want to capitalize on that.
Well, I think this is going to be our biggest point of difference. I'm a complete Husky fan. I'm sorry. I'm looking forward to this Apple Cup. But no, Burien and same with Normandy Park, Des Moines, we are very unique. We are out of the traffic fray a little bit. We have this incredible communities that have been here for a long time. We can be into downtown Seattle so quick if we want. We should be able to market around that. We should be able to market around the fact that we have beach accesses here like Seahurst Park and develop around that. But of course, the biggest thing will always be that we have the airport in our backyard. all of the kind of airport-related industries so far have been along SeaTac, and I mean, I've been down to Pack Highway there, International Boulevard, and boy, if I was from out of town, I don't think I'd want to be staying in a hotel there. It's not really a good place, fun place to be. Now, Burien, meanwhile, if we could have a modest hotel here, it would benefit our local businesses, and I think that people coming into town for business or pleasure would much rather be here in our community than over in SeaTac.
I think one of the most important things that's developing in this area is regional, and as we've kind of touched on here. But would any of you favor a closer, more than just next door relationship with other cities? Would you favor a four-city organization to talk about these kinds of problems? Normandy Park, Burien, SeaTac, and Des Moines. These are the cities, and all together they are interlocked, whether they want to be or not. What happens in one happens in the other. So.
Well, if I could interject for a second. I lived in Tri-Cities for a while, and I often thought that that was a potential concept that we could try to think about here as well. Tri-Cities is 3 very different cities. They all have their own really great strengths about them. And we have our 3 cities, or we could call it a quad city, whatever we do. But, you know, in line with what Jack is saying, is that a concept that either of you think would work? And I don't know, we've never tried it. And not saying that we'd all become one city, but you become a very closer city with the other ones. Where Tri-Cities, literally, they work together. And I lived there in the 90s, and you go there today, and it's unbelievable what they've accomplished together in their little tiny area. And now they're just in, I mean, it's amazing, their booming economy that they have. So what are your thoughts on that type of relationship with cities?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's why we have the Highline Association. I think that we should definitely build on that, because I mean, we're all rather small communities and we're all rather interconnected, especially in infrastructure-wise. I mean, our roads all lead through each other. It only makes sense for us to work together, especially on infrastructure, but also to attract businesses. Let's build a brand around that. Let's always work together. I'd like to have our meetings more often together.
100% agree. We do need to work together. What benefits one will benefit us all. And I grew up in Burien and Des Moines, and I was through Des Moines very recently, and it's really sad for me to see the actual core of Des Moines completely vacant. Our 153rd Street, vacant. We do need to come up with a game plan. We need follow through and action from our council members and not bickering back and forth on minutia.
I'd like to ask a question that probably won't be as pleasant to answer, but some people have requested that the city of Burien consider expanding their budget, increase taxes to add more police officers. What are your views on that?
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely 100% sympathize with that notion. I mean, I know that my garage has been broken into a couple of times. I had a next door neighbor move. He said the reason why is because his car was getting broken into almost every single month. This is a problem that we face with, and everyone wants something to be done about it. However, one, our budget is very strapped. I don't know if the taxpayers can handle a tax increase. And 2, our police officers' response time is fairly good. We can't hire enough cops to put one on every single corner. Even if we did, it couldn't make us safer. What we need to do is support our neighborhood watch programs, make sure our police officers are encouraging more people to go into that, give them whatever resources they need. That will be the best use of funds. It's neighbors watching neighbors and looking out for each other that makes us safer, not expensive police forces, although our police force is great and I absolutely support them.
We absolutely need to increase our police force. It's going to enable our business district to thrive. Again, it's about revenue. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to raise taxes. We have to think outside the box. Now, Normandy Park chose to put this on a levy, and the voters approved it. That is one way. And to be really frank, I bet if it was put at a levy to Burien voters, they would agree. They would vote for it. However, we don't need to necessarily go down that road. We need to explore options such as, how about a licensing fee for apartments or rental units? And this would bring them in line with the tax rates of single-family residences. We need to recognize that apartments actually use far more of our police services than our single-family homes. So that's just one option as well. The FBI statistics state that we need to have 1 cop per 1,000 residents, and we are understaffed completely. It's a two-prong issue. We need public safety to be a priority in order to encourage our business districts. Business districts bring revenue to the city. You have to have both. Burien has to be inhospitable to criminals. And when you are inhospitable to criminals, our revenues will increase.
Well, I'm going to just make a comment on part of that. I don't know how this stands. We have the expert next to me, but there was talk in Normandy Park about a $20 a cart cab license fee to raise money for the police department. Did that pass, or transportation pass?
That actually is for the transportation benefit district for the roads, yes. But we have talked about a potential levy lid lift, which we had passed before, as Darla said, and now we have another one coming up in November that we'll be looking at to raise funds for the city.
But would you people support something like the extra car tab fee to raise money for whatever?
Yeah, and I don't think I could. I'm not sure if it could be a car tab fee. Could it be applied to police forces? Transportation benefit district has all limits on what it could be spent for. That being said, I've talked to a lot of people around the community who say that they need pedestrian improvements in their neighborhood urgently. They say they have children who walk to school, and that they're afraid for them every time they walk out because they have speeders that come through. A simple stop sign here and there, a couple elevated crosswalk speed bump, nothing too expensive or extravagant. There's a lot of demand for it, and I think that we should consider options. I wouldn't want to go an extra $20, but something smaller than that I think we should consider.
We also have available to us certain grants that are both federal and statewide that I would push hard for that would actually help us. 3 years ago, the majority council vetoed. They said no to actually adding 3 cops to our police force. I think now they regret that. Where there's a will, there's a way. We have to address it. It's not going away. You need strong council leadership to get us there.
Is it almost time for public questions?
I've got lots of questions, but yes, let's see what you have to say. Anybody want to raise the okay? Do we have a microphone?
Go ahead, Bill.
Okay, go ahead. You'll start with you.
Lauren Berkowitz endorsement, and many in this community see her as very divisive, costly in our community, and our council that months rejects that endorsement. I'm just curious if you plan on doing it now. If not, why did you accept the endorsement and not say anything about it? And 3,
We cannot hear you.
Darla, can you pass your microphone?
Can you speak up, please?
And if you were on the council.
That was a great idea.
Should we expect more of the same from you if you were on the council as we have from her, like 50 hours of arguing over Twitter, whether or not she could tweet or not, which she simply could have just said, okay, in about 30 seconds. Thanks.
Yeah, I didn't realize I either accepted or rejected the endorsement. I'm happy to have the support of anyone who supports me, especially if they're a sitting council member. What I want to avoid is divisive issues where we're arguing over things like Twitter moving forward. That being said, obviously, me and Lauren have a lot of differences, such as the $15 minimum wage. Like I said, I'm not convinced that's right for Burien. But I hope to work with any council member, regardless if they endorse me or not.
Can you hear me? Okay. Hi, my name is Jose. I am a resident here. I, for the most part, grew up in Burien. I'm also a housing advocate, and I believe that housing is a human right. I believe that tenants face a lot of issues on a daily basis. You all talked on landlord and slumlords and tenant issues, but mostly specifically to businesses. I want to know where you stand with tenants' rights in the city of Burien, whether you believe or support adding additional protections to tenants who may be facing economic evictions. As we see now, the city of Seattle has a lot of displacement. Folks are moving out of the city into more affordable cities like Burien. And so that in itself allows for a lot of landlords to, well, speculate and raise the rent as well. Only notifying the tenants with the minimum requirement, pushing them further out. I've grown up in Burien and I love Burien, and I think that most affected are those who are considered lower income. So I'd like to know what your stance is on adding additional protections to tenants or even supporting tenant rights.
I'll take that one. Burien currently has 33% low-income housing. We actually have the highest affordable housing in all of King County, not just South King County, but all of King County. Your specific question is would I support adding more protection against landlords raising rents and whatnot? Is that how I understand it?
No, not specifically of rents, but adding protections that will help safeguard tenants who may be facing some sort of additional issue. Which again, if the rent is increased, it can trickle down to even homelessness.
Okay. So I will tell you that Washington is very tenant favorable, and I would support exactly that. I also do not support rent control.
Yeah, well, I mean, so you touch on something that's going to be a growing issue for us as we continue to have more pressure, more people moving from outside the area, and we have limits on how quickly we can expand. I think the number one thing that we have to do is to ensure that there is a sufficient supply of housing. That's got to be number one, because if there isn't sufficient supply of housing, any protections we do put in place will only help some, and we'll still be competing with each other. So that's number one thing, to ensure that there's sufficient supply of housing. So, and that will alleviate economic evictions, basically. And also, I don't want to impose any new taxes that would hurt the addition of new rental properties coming in.
Go ahead, just a moment. I want to
bring up one thing. There's a sign back there that says empty houses to be used for homeless people. Okay, that sounds simple, but I found this was more complicated than that sign would indicate. Banks own these houses. I know that people don't like banks, but unfortunately they run our society in some places. And they own these buildings, and they're not going to use them for homelessness unless the city wants to buy them. So what would you consider something like that the city getting into the housing business?
No, thank you. Simple answer is no. The city, I mean, we don't really have the resources to be buying up large amounts of houses. You are using eminent domain to try and buy large houses, even if they wouldn't be the most cost-effective way to accomplish our goal anyway. If the goal is to provide housing, there's way more cost-effective ways to provide far more beds than to purchase a lot of houses. And the statistics on, we talk about, there's all these empty houses, why aren't we filling them? It's kind of misleading, because a lot of that is people who are, that counts houses that are in transition, people are, moving in or moving out. Those numbers count houses that have burned down, but just it hasn't been recorded properly that's been burned down yet. Houses that are in areas where there's no services, so it wouldn't do any good to stick someone out in a cabin out in the woods. That might be an empty house, but that doesn't help anyone to put them out there. So no, I wouldn't propose using city funds to buy houses.
It's called HUD.
didn't come
The
here to
city the
listen to
size
you
of
yet.
Burien
Shut up.
cannot be in the business of buying houses. Let us just look at one example in Seattle. The Seattle Times building was abandoned for 9 to 12 months and was occupied by squatters. And the damage that they did to that building is incomprehensible. Burien does not deserve something like that.
You're stereotyping people.
Candidates forum, not here to protest, go
Where's the
ahead.
microphone? Yes, yes.
Okay. My question for each of you is, will you please explain what special skills that you will be bringing to the council?
Well, I think I'm funny. I'm kidding. I'm very level-headed. I have the ability to compromise even if I don't agree. Because I'm going to come to this position with a Burien first attitude. And if it's in the greater good for Burien, it is something that I will support. It may not mean that I personally would support it, but if I see it as the greater good, I would support it for you. I'm a great multitasker, and I have the time that this position is going to take. I am not a full-time student. I am a mother, and I am a business owner that has a successful business so that I can take on this challenge.
Yeah, I'd like to think I bring policy understanding to the table, back with having worked in real estate in the past and studying community development, urban planning. I mean, my last few years of my life, the huge emphasis has been on local municipal policy. I've been called somewhat of a nerd about it, but sidewalk width is surprisingly exciting to me, and I think that's what we need. There's a lot of, we elect really good members. I believe we always do, and I think they always have the best interest in heart. Many of them are even business owners themselves. And yet, if you're not familiar with policy, it's easy to copy and paste. I see the city wasted a lot of money, I feel, on street light, on parking signal lights when they stop signs would have been more effective. Now, if you're not too familiar with walkability and urban planning, then that is something you might not necessarily know, and lobbyists could easily mislead someone into spending money we don't need. So I think it's important to have good policy background so we can be good stewards of taxpayer money.
Is there somebody on this side of the room? Okay.
So a very current issue.
Go for it.
A very current issue today is the shooting that happened down in Oregon last week at UCC. Also very current is the SRO officer who is assigned to the high school here in Burien. I'd like to know what your stand is. It will be coming back up because it's a negotiated position that's contracted with Burien Police Department. I'd like to know what both of your positions are on the SRO position, school resource officer in the Burien District.
Just for your information, the council did pass
They
that.
did, but it will be it's not a long term. It's 2 to 3 years. So each one of you.
Yeah, if the Highline School District is asking for our assistance and having someone there that we work together, have that resource officer, I support it. You know, if that's they feel it's good, then I think that we should work with them whenever we can to help them. Absolutely.
The tragedy last week, unfortunately, was just one of many. But I would like to point out that the mass shootings that have been happening here have all happened in gun-free zones. And that is really unfortunate. It's a ridiculous statement for a council member to disagree with having an armed, trained police officer, a first responder in our campuses. I want to partner with the Highline School District, and it's really unfortunate that we had to spend so much time on coming to an agreement to support the SRO when this has been in our budget for 12 plus years.
Any other questions? Following the red shirts and the big cameras. Tell us what the camera's for.
I'm putting the video on the B-Town blog. Purpose of my question is annexation. Recently, Burien tried to annex White Center. Where did you stand on it? How do you feel about it? And if the opportunity to annex White Center again came up, would you support it? And if you have if you're kind of on the ropes on it, how far would you go to annex White Center? Would you use, say, the fire district loophole that would bypass a vote of the people in order to annex White Center? Thank you.
Well, to directly answer, I would never use any loophole to bypass a vote of the people. Whatever we do in this situation has to be with the people's consent. I don't have a strong opinion one way or the other. That's why I say it has to be the people's consent. We have to see what the people of our community want and what's going to be best for everyone.
Burien and White Center voters made it very clear that they do not want annexation. It is time to put this issue to bed and concentrate on the issues that are directly affecting us. No, I would not support the fiscally irresponsible annexation of White Center.
I might say that some people I know in Seattle on their city council say that they don't want White Center I might ask our two candidates if they're interested in that drug rehabilitation center that Des Moines doesn't want. Somebody said the mayor last week said that we had a place over here in the north in the redevelopment zone under the runway. How many people in this room would favor such a center in Burien?
Why not? We have a cheap shadle already, and you have to pay a lot of money for that. But
I want to just put my 2 cents on that. Burien has Schickshadel. We also have Hospitality House. We have Milam Recovery Center. We do not need a methadone clinic as well. We have Navos as well. We have, what I'm trying to articulate to you is that Burien has services available, and adding a methadone clinic to the current structure of Burien would be a huge detriment.
Yeah, I was actually at the grand opening of the new Novels facility. It's an amazing, beautiful facility that does incredible work. I would not seek out and try and get them to come to our community, but I also would not be the one to stand up and say, not in my backyard.
I will.
Okay, back there.
Okay, I have been listening, and I'm an avid reader, but there are still some things that I'm not clear about for both of you. What things have you done for the city of Burien prior to running for this? Volunteering at city events, serving on advisory boards, active participation at council meetings on topics of importance. We've had a lot of them. What youth groups have you worked with or coached in this city? Have you organized or led or been an active member in a block watch or a community neighborhood group in this city? Have you volunteered or helped at the Strawberry Festival, Clean Sweep, etc.? I would like, not to dance around it, name specifically what you've done, please.
Yeah, it's true. As a young person, I haven't had the opportunity yet to be involved in a lot of these incredible, great organizations around our city. A lot of my work that has been volunteer has been done kind of in the political advocacy type world, advocating for better transportation for us. I mean, it was devastating when we lost our 139 bus, which brings people, communities to the hospital and the grocery store. So that's kind of been my realm, but I'm really excited for the opportunity to serve my community in this capacity if elected.
I have been.
It's the loud microphone too. I'll try to talk softer. I have been definitely involved in my community. I'm a huge community volunteer, both only in my son's school, not only in my son's school, but through community events. Because I do own a business, I think it's important to give back to the community. I just finished up a food drive for transformburien.org, which was great. In the past, I've held bingo bashes for dog food. We've raised hundreds and hundreds of pounds of animal food. We have rallied around 2 separate families, 2 separate Christmas seasons to support them. It's very important. Volunteering and getting to know my community is a big deal, and I am also a block watch captain because, like you, I am concerned. I'm on my second year as a block watch, and it's going well. It's going great.
Other questions?
Okay. How about this gentleman right here?
Thank you. So, Mr. Bell, you spoke earlier about compassion as...
Turn your mic on.
It's not on.
Just belt it out. Just talk right into it. Go. I can hold it. Just
Okay.
belt it out.
Thank you. You spoke about compassion earlier in this forum in relation to approaching the homeless issue. Do you think that a tent city in Burien is an example, is an idea worthy of consideration in your opinion as one of the ways to approach this homeless issue we have here in Burien?
No. The problem with putting a tent city right here in Burien is that we don't really have the services to provide for people. We should be finding housing for people somewhere where there'll be services where they can get a leg up, not here in Burien where they'll be too far away from the city, from other employment centers, from service opportunities.
As I stated before, I do not support a tent city or a car lot and camping lot. I don't support the gift cards that are currently being given out and used as cash for drugs. We have a lot of services available to people that need it and reach out, and we have to trust our first responders to help the people that need it the most.
Other questions?
Okay.
Yeah, I guess my question is to both of you. Well, no, I take that back. It's going to be it's going to be specifically pointed. In your response to the King County Democrats, you had mentioned, Austin, you had mentioned that the 606 was going to be, if you're elected, you want to repeal 606, which, some people say it's against homeless people, and like Darla mentioned, it's criminal activity, it's behavior. My question is, I've been on my same house for 39 years here in Burien. And in June of this year, I came home from Spain and cleaned out my garage. And right outside the front door, the back door of my garage, there was human feces. Someone had defecated right about a foot away from my garage door. And I know it wasn't a dog, because dogs do not use toilet paper, which was also right there. The type of person that does this, I don't want around my house. And I hope I don't ever find him or her again. Why would you want to repeal something that helps keep the homes, the neighborhoods safe?
Well, I guess I simply don't believe that ordinance has prevented anyone from defecating behind your garage, and I think that gets to the root of it. We talked about criminal behavior. If it's criminal behavior, we have laws against that. My granddad used to always joke that every time you make a new law, you just made more criminals. If these people are committing crimes, yes, we should do something about that. Absolutely, we cannot tolerate that. However, I do not believe this ordinance has made us any safer. I don't think it's helped out our businesses. I think all it's done is caused an embarrassment. That's why we need to work for real solutions.
I do believe in real solutions, and I'm going to give you my personal story as a business owner and with the trespass ordinance. I had a gentleman come to my storefront. My storefront has a bank of windows on it. And he was about 3 inches from a window, laughing hysterically, crying hysterically, and screaming at his reflection in the window. I had a client with me, and how my front door is, we were watching him do this, and it was very uncomfortable and very sad. I told my client that I could not let her leave through my front door. It was not in her personal safety to do that. I called the police, and they came, and they knew him by name, and they said, this is just so-and-so, and don't worry, he's not violent, he's a meth head, and he does have a violent history, but he hasn't been violent in about 7 years. Can I trespass him for you? And I'm like, what does that mean? It means that he can't come back here. I'm going to trespass him for a week, and he won't be able to come back. I said, absolutely, I will sign that. Well, guess what? He came back, and he was behind my shop at that time, and I called him by name because I knew that, and I said, so-and-so, you cannot be here. I will call the police, and you will be arrested. And you know what? He left, and he never came back.
Thanks. So Austin, you're studying urban planning. Darla, you're a business owner. I'd like to know how you've been involved with the respective commissions, the Planning Commission or the BEDP, and if you've been involved with them and sharing your ideas.
That's a great question. I haven't had the opportunity yet, but I hope to work with them very closely if elected.
I turned my application, I thought, into the BEDP. It was lost, and then I decided to run for city council. But I have sat in on the BEDP meetings since the beginning of the year, and what an incredible group of people. It is people from every walk of life. They are retired, they are business owners, they are real estate professionals, they are investors. And they come together every 2 weeks to discuss the needs of Burien. And working with them will be a great joy for me as a business owner and as a council member.
Yes, my name is Ernest Mullins, and I have a home here in Burien. I take years. I've been here about 10, King County 15. And I live by the skate park here in Ennis. I am 44 at the 4th Avenue Southwest, and I have seen some really disgusting stuff. There's a lot of human waste all over that area. Back side of the building, the north side of the building. I've seen the police there numerous times. They come, they make the people leave, and they got these signs up, no trespassing, and yet I don't see them handing them any paperwork, no trespassing warnings or anything. So I see the police coming, all these taxpayer money. I don't know. I was at Safeway about a month ago, and I was leaving the store, and the police officer pulled up his car, and a guy was, he said, well, you have a warrant. Next thing I know, there's 7 squad cars for one guy that has a warrant, 16-year-old, who wasn't resisting or anything. So it's all this financial money being spent for one guy. And so what I'm seeing is all this money being going out for the police officers, and I don't see much change in the crime. I do see some help for the homeless happening. I think it's wonderful. But the people that are there that don't want homes, that are causing a crime. I had put a $200 mailbox up last year. I have to park my car in the garage now because I got recordings where they got in my car 3 times in 1 year out in the parking lot, in my driveway. So I'd like to know, how are you going to help to get the police officers, you know, all this, I don't know, I see the airport's growing, a lot of stuff is, traffic's increased at least 10-15% last year, so it's growing. I can see big growth happening, so money's going to be coming. And I see crime starting, so how are we going to curtail this crime and use these resources? And I don't know what you guys are going to do about that.
You realize that 56% of your budget, city of Burien budget, goes to the police department?
And it's the highest crime rate in King County, or it's in Washington State, it's not one of those.
It is time to remove ourselves from that list. I do not want to be anywhere near the top 20 cities that are dangerous to live in. We must support our police department, our fire department. We must do that by enabling them to do their job. If they need to arrest a wanted felon, then arrest them. But if we can trespass somebody with an ordinance, then trespass them, and I'm going to let them use their best judgment because that's what we're paying them for. We have to support our police department first with a city council that supports our ordinance. Repealing our ordinance is not in the best interest of Burien.
We do need to support our police department, absolutely. However, again, I don't believe that ordinance is doing anything to address this particular concern. What we need is more eyes. We need to support our neighborhood watch programs. I've gone door to door. I've met many people who are either block captains or in the watch program. And I ask, what can we do to help support you? And they say the number one thing is we just need to spread more awareness. We need to let our neighbors know what we're doing. We need to get them involved. Because if we have more eyes, that's when you're able to chase people away. I mean, you gave the good example of someone coming to your business, and it was the fact that you saw them and asked them to leave, rather than a cop standing there the entire time to push them out.
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this though on what you just said. You keep saying that the trespass ordinance hasn't done anything. On what basis do you make that comment?
Right, well, so we did a public records request a few months back on everyone that had been charged. Me and a friend of mine filed a public records request, his name's Stefan. But we found that the majority of them were actually just teenagers who were somewhere after dark, not necessarily high crime. I haven't been made aware of any crime that's been prevented because we had this, or issue that could have been solved without this ordinance.
One more, Darla.
Well, I just want to say that in my story, he left under threat of arrest because he was violating the trespass ordinance. It did work. It does work. And the population you're speaking of is called an idle youth population. They have their own terminology. And what are they doing out on their bikes at 11 p.m.? They're casing your houses, and they're breaking into your cars. And we don't have enough police officers to respond to our phone calls because by the time they get there, they're gone. We need to support our police department, and we need more officers.
I live in the Three Tree Point area, and we have lots and lots of video cameras there. We have break-ins, car prowls on almost a nightly basis, and we always have video of the vehicles. They are late model SUVs, they are Honda Acuras. They are not the homeless people. When you're talking about crime, this equation, this confirmational bias that somehow it's homeless people, makes me crazy. There are homeless people who have drug problems. There are homeless people who are alcoholics. And is there anyone in this room who does not know someone who has a drug problem or is an alcoholic who just happens to have a roof over their head? Anybody? Anybody? If we're spending all this police time chasing down people who are defecating in the street or behind a house, and there's no public bathrooms in areas that make sense, what do you want them to do? Carry a poop bag? I mean, really.
I would like to remind you that we did put a porta potty at the Annex Park and they burned it down. It's arson. Also, we need police officers to follow up on the videos that you say you have. I agree. I am not calling homeless people criminals. I'm calling criminal behavior criminal, and there is a difference.
Get your comment and one more question. So
one more right here.
Hi. Yes. Can you hear me?
Austin needs to respond.
Oh, go ahead.
Real quick, sorry about that. But no, you're absolutely right. That's the crimes that we're facing are from people who have cars and homes. They case our neighborhoods, oftentimes during the day. They look for houses that are empty, and then they break in and they go back to wherever it is they live in their homes and sell our stuff online. That's not something that more cops are going to be able to solve. We can't have a cop on every single corner, and we can't afford that anyway.
Can you hear me now? So I just wanted to ask both candidates, what is your 20-year plan for it's the homelessness and the drug situation?
We know that when people have roofs, they get jobs and they get sober. So that's it. Thank you.
What are your plans? What are your plans?
I'll be retired, hopefully. 20-year plan. We have to think long-term vision here. This is very, very important, and this is exactly why this election is so critical. We have to elect council members that will work together for the future of Burien. We do have to address our homeless population, our criminal population, and our business districts, and it's something that's going to take time and energy. You need the willingness to do it and the council members to do it together. My vision for Burien, and I'm born and raised here. My grandmother actually, she was born and raised here, so I'm multi-generational as well. And I've seen Burien make an amazing strides. I used to work, anyone remember Jim Moore's? I used to work there. And we wouldn't even walk over to the other side of the street where my shop is. We wouldn't even go to that side of the street because it was kind of scary. And so here I am 25 years later, and I own a business in the very shop that I wouldn't go to. So we have a lot of positive things going for us, and you need council members that are going to help us get there. And I see hotels in our future. Beautiful boutique-styled hotels. I see a performing arts center in Burien to bring people into Burien. I see jobs in Burien. I see NERA creating over 1,000 jobs. This is great for our revenue, for your city, for my city, and for our neighborhoods.
To be clear, I think the question was on 20-year plan for homelessness. Was that all right? What we have, this has to be a regional issue. Our plan, going forward in the next 20 years, has to be regional. We have to have the county involved. This is not something that the Burien taxpayers can shoulder on their own. It's something that we should care about. We have to be compassionate about. It affects each and every one of us, whether we like it or not. But it's not something that we can do alone. That's why we have to work with the county and our regional partners, hopefully through a Highline Association, to address long-term solutions that help get these people back up on their feet, a handout to anyone who's willing to work, and also stable housing so that we can end this cycle that doesn't help anyone.
Any final words from other candidates? I think we've heard. Thank you very much for being here. Another opportunity is on next week.